Old age is not like the romantic movies portray. It is emptier, lonelier, and sometimes it makes you feel as if the world has forgotten you. I have spent more than half of my life in luxury. I have attended extravagant parties, traveled to expensive destinations, and had love affairs that once felt eternal. But in the end, when everything settled down, I realized money could never fill the emptiness inside me. People my age often reminisce about the past, about missed opportunities, about words of love left unsaid, about moments when their hearts wavered, but they chose to step back. I was no different. I thought my life was settled, until I met Ethan. And that night made me question, is age truly a barrier to desire and emotion? I never thought a rainy evening in Los Angeles could change my world so much. As a 55-year-old woman with a privileged life, I believed I had already experienced all of life's major ups and downs. But as it turned out, there were still unexpected moments waiting for me. I just didn't know it, until it happened. That night, raindrops trickled down the window of a small cafe on a quiet street. I chose a secluded corner, a spot where I could gaze out at the empty road outside. My deep blue silk dress clung to my body, elegant enough to reflect the grace of a wealthy woman, but not overly flashy. I wasn't in the habit of going out at night. But tonight, something urged me to leave my vast mansion, a place filled only with silence and cold walls. As I gently stirred my espresso, a man walked into the cafe. He was tall, well-built, exuding an air of confidence. His sun-kissed skin glowed faintly under the cafe's dim lighting, and his deep-set eyes made it impossible for me to look away. I had never been particularly interested in men, at least not in recent years. After 2 failed marriages and a few fleeting romances, I had grown accustomed to being alone. But as this man approached the counter and ordered a glass of red wine, a strange curiosity crept into my mind. He chose a table near mine, and somehow, our eyes met. Strangely, I did not feel shy, nor did I quickly avert my gaze like a young girl caught stealing glances. At my age, I no longer cared about the formalities of social interaction. I held his gaze calmly, like an observer admiring a fascinating piece of art. But what surprised me even more was that he smiled and raised his glass toward me. Maybe it was the alcohol, maybe it was a rare impulse, but I lifted my coffee cup, responding in kind. And just like that, everything began. He moved to sit across from me, as if we had known each other for years. I don't remember every detail of our conversation that night, but I remember this. Our conversation flowed effortlessly and unexpectedly smoothly. We talked about simple things, about the weather, about Los Angeles cafes, about the places he had traveled to. Gradually, I learned his name, Ethan, a common name. Yet, when paired with his presence, it became extraordinary. His deep, warm voice felt like listening to a soft jazz melody. When I asked him what he did for a living, Ethan simply gave a mysterious smile and replied, "I run a business." I didn't press further, because to me, his job wasn't as important as the way I felt sitting across from him. One thing surprised me. I didn't feel the age gap between us. Ethan had a way of speaking that made me forget I was 25 years older than him. He wasn't too young and reckless, nor did he make me feel old. We were simply 2 people enjoying a pleasant evening together. His glass of wine emptied. My coffee had gone cold. I began to realize how quickly time had passed. Outside, the rain continued to fall gently. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, creating a soft, dreamlike glow. Just as I was about to get up to leave, Ethan suddenly asked, "Emma, would you like to come to my place tonight?" I froze. Not because it was the first time a man had invited me over, but because I didn't expect Ethan to be the one to say it. I looked directly into his eyes, trying to decipher the meaning behind his invitation. But his gaze remained calm and confident, as if he didn't care what my answer would be. For a brief moment, I struggled with myself. A part of me said I shouldn't go, that I was too old to make impulsive decisions like this. But another part one couldn't control, wanted to experience something new. One more time. Finally, I set my coffee cup down, took a deep breath, and said, "All right." Ethan smiled, without another word. He stood up, put on his coat, and motioned for me to follow. Outside, the rain had stopped. Tiny droplets clung to my hair. The late-night air wrapped around my skin. Yet strangely, I didn't feel cold. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I would regret it in the morning. But right now, walking beside Ethan through the quiet Los Angeles night, I decided not to overthink it. Tonight, I would let myself follow my emotions. I didn't know what awaited me, but one thing was certain. I was about to embark on an adventure I never saw coming. "Would you like a drink?" Ethan asked, pouring a glass of red wine. I sat down on the sofa, gently taking the glass from his hand. Our fingers brushed, just a fleeting moment, but enough for me to feel the warmth of his skin. We weren't in a hurry to talk. I took a sip, letting the delicate bitterness of the wine spread across my tongue. The room was quiet. Not the kind of silence that needed to be filled, but the kind that felt comfortable, as if we both enjoyed each other's presence, without meaningless words. I watched as Ethan settled beside me, relaxed yet always in control. There was something about him. Not arrogance, not dominance, but a quiet confidence that made it seem like nothing could shake him. Not in a way that demanded attention, but in a way that made you want to give it. We talked about unimportant things. His travels, the places I had lived, the trivial joys of life. They were simple stories. Yet I found myself captivated, not by the words themselves, but by the way Ethan spoke. His voice was deep and warm, carrying a touch of mystery, the kind of voice you could listen to forever. I don't remember how much I drank, only that when my glass was empty, Ethan refilled it. There was no pressure, no urgency. Everything unfolded naturally, as if we had known each other for a long time. At some point when I turned to look at him, I noticed his gaze had changed. It was no longer just curiosity, but something deeper, more intense. I felt my breath slow. The space between us seemed to shrink. "Emma," Ethan said my name. Soft, yet powerful. I waited for him to continue, but he only watched me. I wasn't sure what I had been expecting. An explanation? A question? A bold move? But I didn't look away. And suddenly I realized what I had been trying to deny since the moment I walked in. I was drawn to Ethan, not just for his looks, but because he made me feel something. Something I thought I had lost long ago. He made me feel young again. Like I could still experience emotions I had long buried. But, should I let myself go? I didn't know. And at that moment, I didn't want to know. Ethan was still looking at me. His eyes held a silent invitation. I felt my heart race, a feeling I hadn't felt in a long, long time. For years I had lived a quiet, orderly life. I thought I had nothing left to chase, nothing left to discover. But now, in Ethan's dimly lit apartment, I realized that calmness I had built was nothing more than a wall to protect myself from uncertainty. And now that wall was crumbling. Ethan picked up his glass, took a sip, then placed it on the table. He leaned in, close enough for me to feel his warmth. I knew that if I moved just a little closer, the distance between us would disappear completely. I could have stood up. I could have left before things went too far. But I didn't. We sat in silence. No words. No explanations. The air between us thickened, charged with an undeniable tension. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "Emma, I've never met anyone like you." His voice was low, smooth, like a jazz melody drifting through the night. I didn't ask him what he meant. I didn't overanalyze his words. I simply accepted them. I knew I was no longer young. My youth had long slipped away, and I had learned to accept that. But when I looked into Ethan's eyes, I didn't see pity. I didn't see judgment. I only saw longing. Raw. Genuine. Undeniable. I don't remember who moved first. I only know that at some point, I felt Ethan's breath against my skin. My heart pounded. But I wasn't nervous. I wasn't afraid. I closed my eyes, letting myself drift. Outside, the city lights still flickered. But at that moment, all of Los Angeles seemed to disappear, leaving only the two of us in our own world. And tonight, I chose to forget everything that should have held me back. There are moments in life when you know you're crossing a line, but you choose not to stop. That night, I felt that line more clearly than ever. A part of me knew what was happening was against everything I had told myself. But another part, the part one couldn't control, wanted to feel, to test my own limits. I had spent countless lonely nights, lying in my grand empty room, staring at the ceiling, wondering, am I still capable of love? Am I still capable of being moved? I had convinced myself that those feelings belonged in the past, that I no longer needed them. But now, when Ethan touched me, I knew I was wrong. Feelings, no matter how deeply buried, can still rise again. In an instant. Ethan was not in a hurry. He wasn't impatient like the young men I had known in my youth. He understood something most men never did. That slowness is sometimes more powerful than intensity. I felt his patience, his respect, his silent appreciation for me. A flicker of fear passed through my mind. Was this just a game to Ethan? Would he forget me when the night was over? But the look in his eyes told me, it wasn't that simple. I didn't know what we were. And maybe, I didn't need to know. At that moment, I let go of the walls I had spent years building. I let go of my past, my doubts, my fears. I let go of everything. And for the first time in years, I simply let myself feel. I was Emma, a 55-year-old woman, burdened by the past. But last night I was just a woman, living in the present, letting myself feel, if only for a moment. On a quiet night in Los Angeles, I don't remember when I fell asleep. I only remember that before my eyes closed, I felt a kind of peace, a peace I hadn't felt in years. Maybe sometimes, what we need isn't a promise. Not forever. Not even tomorrow. Just a fleeting moment to remind us, we are still alive. I woke up to the soft glow of morning light filtering through the curtains, casting the room in a warm golden hue. For the first few seconds, I forgot where I was. The unfamiliar texture of the blanket, the faint scent of wood lingering in the air, the warmth of a body beside me, and then it all came rushing back. Ethan was still asleep, his breathing slow, even. I lay still, staring at the ceiling, letting myself sink into the quiet. There was something strange about this silence. Not regret, not remorse, but not quite peace either. I turned my head. Ethan's face, softened by the morning light, made him look younger, more at ease. I wondered if he was dreaming, or if he was simply resting after a long night. Slowly, I lifted my arm from under the covers, moving carefully, as if disturbing the stillness of this moment would make it disappear. I reached for my coat, draped it over my shoulders, and walked to the window. Los Angeles stretched out before me in the morning sun. The streets below were beginning to stir, life moving forward, as if nothing had changed. But to me something had changed. I felt more alive. It had been so long since I woke up without feeling empty, so long since I had a moment where I wasn't dwelling on the past, wasn't worrying about the future. But then, like a sudden gust of cold wind, thought crept into my mind, making me shiver slightly. Where is this going? I had let myself drift with my emotions for a night, but now, as reality began to settle in, I wondered, had I stepped into something I couldn't control? Ethan was much younger than me. And as for me, I was far past the age of believing in love stories that defied all odds. I knew who I was, knew there were limits I couldn't ignore. So what now? I turned back, looking at Ethan again. He was still sleeping, unaware of the tangled thoughts twisting inside me. I sighed softly. Maybe deep down, I already knew the answer. I stood there for a long time, looking out at the early morning sky, feeling the conflict pulling at my heart. A part of me wanted to go back to bed, to curl up beside Ethan, to let myself enjoy this warmth just a little longer. But another part, the rational part, reminded me that last night was just a fleeting moment, not something that could last. Quietly, I walked to the sofa, where my clothes still held the warmth of my body. I dressed slowly, carefully, trying not to make a sound, not because I was afraid to face Ethan, but because I didn't want to see that look, the look that could make me doubt my decision. When I turned back for a final glance, Ethan was still there, his face peaceful in the golden morning light. Would he be surprised to find me gone when he woke up? Would he look for me? Or had he known, just as I did, that this was always going to be the ending? I didn't know. and I didn't want to know. I quietly opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and as I closed it behind me, the soft click echoed in the silence, like the final punctuation of the night before. When I returned home to my vast, empty villa, my footsteps echoed through the quiet halls, and I realized, compared to Ethan's apartment, this place was too quiet. No warmth, no steady breathing beside me when I woke up. Just space and silence. I made myself a cup of tea, sat down on the sofa, let my mind drift. Did I regret it? No. I knew I had done the right thing. But that didn't mean I didn't feel the emptiness settling in my chest. For a long time I believed that at this age, love and desire were just memories, beautiful, distant echoes of the past. But last night proved me wrong. No matter how old we become, the human heart still beats, still longs, still aches, still finds moments that make us feel alive again. So was it wrong? Was it wrong to let myself experience that, even if just for one night? Maybe not. But I know this. Love is not just a temporary feeling. And between Ethan and me, the distance was not just age. There are encounters in life that exist only to teach us something, not to stay with us forever. I took a sip of my tea, letting the warmth settle in my chest. Outside, Los Angeles was alive as always. People moving, the city never stopping. And despite the lingering ache in my heart, I knew I would keep moving forward too.